Hi, welcome to Encouragement for Today. I'm Pastor Emily. I want to invite us to think about our communication approach and style today. I was listening to a podcast by Dr. Henry Cloud this last week, and he's a psychologist that tends to weave in a lot of Christian beliefs when he's giving people feedback when he's learned, especially that the other person is a person of faith. And he brought up a really important point. He said, Romans, the book of Romans, it reminds us that it doesn't tend to work to force people to live under the law. So like in the Old Testament, for instance, Moses, he gets the 10 Commandments, and the Israelites, they get the law. But the law, it doesn't end up producing righteousness. And by that I mean right relationship. It doesn't produce healthy, right connection and relationship with each other and with God. It sort of highlights how much people are not living into that. And so then Jesus comes from a different framework. Jesus brings grace where through our faith in Jesus, we're freed from living under the law and instead are in this free relationship where we are shaped by the Holy Spirit and where we are transformed by our love for God and our love for neighbor. It might produce really similar results to what the law was trying to get at, but instead of being in a relationship with black and white letters on the page, we're shaped by a loving relationship with a God who gives us choice and invites deep transformation and wholeness. So anyway, Henry Cloud, this psychologist, he was talking about how and he was particularly talking about adult-to-adult relationships, not parenting style is a whole other thing to tackle. But in adult-to-adult relationships, it doesn't tend to work well to approach conversations in a controlling manner. And I think this happens more than we realize. It happens in words as subtle as "you should," because you're sort of putting a law. We put a law over the person in front of us when we say "you should do" or "you should believe." It's saying this means a lot to me, so it has to mean a lot to you, which is, it doesn't tend to work well when conversations begin with shoulds or begin with an attempt to control. It didn't work well in the Bible. It doesn't work well now. And someone in small group last night highlighted there are exceptions to everything. And sometimes it does maybe work well. But for each person to feel safe and to really come into their own, there needs to be respect and freedom and space for each person to have choice and to be part of their own process of forming and discovering and questioning and absorbing and figuring out what is meaningful for me and why. And being should on doesn't tend to get a person there. So my question for us today is how can we be curious when we feel ourselves getting very reactive in a situation? How can we shift into a posture of curiosity where we respect the humanity of the person in front of us and want to genuinely learn more about how they see things and why? And then how can we speak more and more in I language kinds of frameworks? Like, I find XYZ meaningful because I feel XYZ when those elementary school I statements we were taught. As adults, it's helpful to remember this. So how do we approach conversation? And how might we remember that the law doesn't tend to work? How can we live in the grace of Jesus Christ and operate that way in our relationships in the world? We'll talk to you again soon.